Hello, and welcome to Message in the Middle with Marianne. We all know that life is hard, right? It's messy, it's unpredictable, but it can be wonderful all at the same time. My hope is that we can take a deep dive into self-development topics and explore life's lessons through book clubs, conversations, and interviews. And together, we can uncover the lessons that others have already learned to help us navigate this crazy, wonderful ride called life. Hello and welcome back to Message in the Middle. I'm your host, Marianne, and I don't know about you, but lately I've been noticing that as functional medicine becomes more and more popular, there's also been an increase in the amount of marketing around gut health. And not just any marketing, but messaging that feels a little more urgent, a little more extreme. Parasite cleanses, heavy metal detoxes, protocols that promise to fix everything in a matter of weeks. And if I'm being honest, I get the appeal. When you've been dealing with bloating, fatigue, constipation, or other symptoms like that you can't quite resolve no matter what you try, some of these things seem like they might be a good answer. But what if some of them aren't really helping us and they're putting our body in more stress than they need to be? That's where today's conversation really begins, and not from a place of fear, but from a place of understanding. Joining me for it is Dr. Kate Davis, a licensed chiropractor and functional medicine doctor whose work is deeply shaped by her own experience. After nearly a decade of chronic gut issues, she discovered that the root cause was a significant parasite infection, something that had been missed along the way. That experience didn't just change her health, it changed the way she approaches healing. And since then, she's helped hundreds of women navigate chronic gut conditions like constipation, bloating, IBS, acid reflux, especially when they feel like they've already tried everything else. Dr. Kate, welcome to Message in the Middle.
Thank you so much, Marianne. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to talk to you. This is a kind of a wild topic, if you will.
Yeah.
And I think that it would be great to just sort of set the stage with your own experience because, as I said, that perspective has obviously led you into this work that you're doing now and your perspective on this work. So share with us a little bit about the decade-long issue you had and sort of how you figured out what was going on and what was being missed.
Yeah, well, it all started when I was in my, early 20s. I had really severe constipation and bloating issues. And so that's kind of how I, got on my journey to the functional medicine world. But, I was 24. I just started chiropractic school and I was just miserable. I went almost 2 weeks without a single bowel movement, 13 days, nothing coming out. Extremely bloated, couldn't even sit up straight in class because I just felt so uncomfortable in my abdomen. And I couldn't really eat any food, even tiny little bits of food would just make me feel terrible. And so, I was young, I was healthy, I was a former Division I athlete. I wasn't the type of person you'd look at and think, oh, she's probably sick on the inside,
Yeah.
Like nothing made sense. And that's why I'm so passionate about gut health, because I remember being in that place and being scared and wondering, why are all my friends healthy? Why is everyone else doing fine? They can eat whatever they want and they have zero issues. And then I'm, struggling to even eat enough food on a daily basis to just keep myself going. And so, I went to the GI doctor like you're supposed to, because I didn't really know much about functional medicine at the time. And, they gave me two terrible options. They said, okay, number one, we could, they diagnosed me with what's called gastroparesis, which just means stomach paralysis, if you break down the root words. And it basically means the food in your stomach isn't moving into the small intestines in the amount of time it's supposed to. So they do what's called a gastric emptying test. I think 10% of my food moved over in the time frame that 90% is supposed to move over. So it was just sitting there, growing bacteria, just creating all sorts of issues in my upper abdomen. And so they said, hey, we can give you a drug, but it has a very common side effect of permanent facial twitches. And I was like, well, young and single, so no thank you. What else you got? Like, I don't want that. So.
What's behind door number 2? Yeah.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So then they were like, well, we could also do surgery to remove your intestines. And I was like, no, thank you. I'm gonna go find someone else. And I never went back. And, I was really blessed to be able to find someone through people at school who was able to actually like give me so much relief. He was a chiropractor. He did what's called functional neurology, but he had a huge background in massage therapy before he became a doctor. So he did myofascial release in my abdomen, which is basically where you do really gentle work that loosens up the fascia around the organs and the muscles. And that night, I swear I lost like 10 pounds. I had like 5 bowel movements. For the first time in 2 weeks, I was able to go to the bathroom.
Wow.
And, 11 of those days I was on Miralax and nothing was happening. And so my body was just a mess. And, from that point on, I completely overhauled my diet, kept going to see that doctor. He really fixed me up and did a great job. And I went paleo, gluten-free, dairy-free, because that's what you do, right? It's like, oh, it
All
must
the
be the food,
things. Yeah.
It must be the food. And then
Yeah.
I had this graveyard of supplements, gut healing supplements that I thought were going to fix the problem.
Yeah.
But every time I strayed from that diet, all my symptoms would come back. So
Mm.
yes, it kept the symptoms at bay, but it never actually fixed the root problem. And so I just went, those 8, 9 years thinking, okay, well, I guess for the rest of my life, I'll just never be able to eat gluten or dairy and just be stuck this way. But at least my stomach doesn't hurt
Yeah.
until, about a decade after that initial, event with the stomach pain. I had a really stressful life event happen and all my symptoms came back and they were worse than they were before.
Mm.
And for those of you who don't know, stress is a huge trigger for what's called leaky gut, which is really, really bad and can cause tons of inflammatory issues and systemic infections throughout your body. And all my symptoms came back. I was on the verge of an autoimmune disease. I was having random swelling in different joints in my body, lots of pain, stuff that just didn't make sense. And my friend was in town, who's a functional medicine doctor, and she said, Kate, this is not normal. You either have a really severe parasite infection or Lyme disease or both. So we're going to do some testing, figure out what's going on. And, she found big parasite infection on my test. I also had a lot of other stuff going on, but that was the most dramatic one because 2 months into this detox plan she put me on, I saw a 3 foot long worm come out of my stool. It was 3 feet, about a
Get.
centimeter wide. I mean, it looked like a little snake living in my body. I was just
Oh
like,
my
where the heck was
God.
this thing living in my body? Like, I just don't understand. And then, over those next 4 months, hundreds of parasites were coming out, like almost every day. Every time I had a bowel movement, I was just like, what the heck is going on? Like, where did these come from?
Were you
But it was so
freaked out?
relieving.
Wait, were you freaked
Yeah.
out? Because I think that would be so freaky.
Yeah, I mean, it was like it did kind of freak me out because, but at the same time, I had been under so much pain and so much dysfunction for so long that it kind of validated why I was feeling like that. Where I was like, okay, this is super gross, but also this makes total sense why I felt so terrible for the last decade of my life.
Oh
And
my God.
so it just like it was like disgusting, but also really satisfying at the same time. Because like when you detox other stuff like mold or fungus, you don't see it come out typically.
Right,
It's just like, well, I
right.
hope it's leaving. But
Yeah.
parasites, I mean, that first big one that came out, I was like, there is no way this was living. Like, where was it living in my body? Is there just empty space in here? Like, what's going on?
I can't even get past that. I think I would be so freaked out that I don't like, I would
Yeah.
just get it out, get it all out. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it
Wild.
was just wild. And it doesn't look pretty when it comes out because it comes out in your stool. If you
Right.
detox correctly, it should just come out dead, not alive. And it's just covered in, fecal matter. And a lot of times you have to have a huge immune system reaction to get bigger worms out. So, and if you're squeamish, maybe just mute it for the next 10 seconds. But they come out with what's called mucus plugs on them, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's just giant thing of mucus over it. So it just looks gross. Like
Mm.
it's not something you want to see come out of your body. But after that, I started, going to the bathroom 2 to 3 times a day. All the bloating disappeared. I lost like 20 pounds over the next 4 months. I was passing hundreds of parasites, all different shapes and sizes. And I just felt like a completely new person. Like all those symptoms went away. I just felt brand new. Like my energy was amazing. I didn't need coffee anymore to stay awake throughout the day. And I just was so passionate about this because I was like, oh my God, how many other people, all their health issues are just related to a parasite infection or
Well,
leaky
stop.
gut or mold
Yes.
toxicity?
Stop
And
there for a second, though, because
yeah,
that's my question, right? As you're talking, I'm thinking, all right, but this sounds a little bit extreme as well as all those Instagram posts and all those like flashy things.
yeah.
Does everybody really? I mean, what's the population here? Like, what's the percentage? I can't imagine we're
I
all
don't,
running around with
yeah,
parasites and leaky gut. Like, that's
yeah.
the sales
I mean,
pitch.
Yeah,
What's the
right.
reality?
Yeah. I mean, it's so hard because testing for parasites is so difficult. They're
Hmm.
really for most stool tests, you'll actually get what's called a false negative, which means the stool test says, "Oh, we didn't pick up on any parasites, you don't have any," when in reality you do. That happened to me. That doctor who initially fixed me, he said, "I'm like 95% sure you have parasites based on all the symptoms going on. You need to go see a naturopath." But because my stool test came back negative, I was like, "No, I'm good. I feel fine.
Uh,
As long as I don't eat dairy or gluten, I'm okay. It's good enough for me." And so it's really tough to pick up these parasites on testing. So it's hard to know like how many people actually have them. But again, it goes and it also goes back to, it's really a reflection of your internal environment, the terrain of your body. So like the microbiome, which is this ecosystem of bacteria and yeast that, lives in our gut and helps us digest food and regulate hormones and produce and store serotonin and dopamine and produce nutrients and absorb nutrients. And so we have this whole ecosystem in our gut that when we kill that off and you get rid of that good bacteria and you allow things like candida, which is a type of fungus, or other bacteria to become opportunistic and overgrow, that really significantly affects your immune system and makes you much more likely to get this crazy parasite infection that I had because 80% of your immune system lives in the gut. So it's really a reflection of your internal immune system, how it's functioning, your physiology. If you have leaky gut, that can definitely allow those infections to spread and go everywhere in your body and cause the symptoms that I was having, like the migrating joint pain and the random swelling and, all that crazy stuff, the brain fog that I was dealing with. So it's hard to say, but in my patients, because I work with gut issues, so obviously I see them a lot more frequently than other doctors might. Probably, I'd say like 75% of the people I work with will see something come out that resembles a parasite.
mm,
And it's actually more common than people think it is. Now, that doesn't mean that every time you get exposed to a parasite, you're going to become infected and they're going to start replicating through your body. If you have good functioning, liver and gallbladder and stomach acid production and good functioning gut and eliminating waste properly, it's not going to affect you the same way it would someone who has, that imbalance in the terrain and that microbiome in the gut, or somebody who has an inhibited immune system, because that's what allows the parasites to start replicating in your body and becoming a huge issue. But we're all exposed to them. They don't just stop at the US border and say, "Oh, we can't go in here. We're only supposed to be in third world countries," because that's what we're taught in pre-med. That's what they taught me in my parasitology class in undergrad. That's what they teach in chiropractic school, med school, whatever doctorate school you go to, is that, "Oh, you don't have to worry about these though, because they only exist in, South America or Southeast Asia. They're very rare in the States." And that's just so far from the truth. So that would be my best answer to your question.
so, all right. So I get it. You said for you around 75%, but I think that's I'll say a smaller
Yeah,
population of very targeted people that are looking for help in that area. So that
exactly.
makes sense that that would
Yeah.
be a much higher percentage. I guess similar to needing to deal with all the parasites, this whole leaky gut topic is right up there as well. Like it's also something that's sort of flashing out there as like you got to fix it. Everybody's got leaky gut. I mean, is it the same situation, right? I can't imagine that everybody sitting here has leaky gut. Is there something to it? Probably. But how much of the population, again, do we think really has leaky gut syndrome?
I mean, almost every single person I work with has leaky gut pop up on testing. But again, they're coming to me with gut issues. So of course it's going
Yeah,
to be a lot more common. I don't know if anyone ever knows the full, percentage of the population because then you have to do testing on everyone. And a lot of that
that's true.
preventative testing you're never going to get from an MD, unfortunately. So
Yeah.
it is very common in the US though, because our food and our self-care products are so tainted with, tens of thousands of unregulated chemicals that have never
Hmm.
been approved by anyone. They just, the company that creates the product does their own studies to approve safety. And you're like, well, they have a financial investment, so it's probably not a legitimate study, but okay. And so then you get all
Yeah.
these, hair products, and like women, I think, deal with this more because hair products, nail products, skincare, makeup,
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
perfumes,
Yeah.
air fresheners, car fresheners.
All of it.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
all the smelly stuff, candles, and so you're really exposing your body to so many chemicals and so much stress. And a lot of that stuff, especially being on birth control for long periods, overuse of antibiotics. Those can really wipe out a lot of that good bacteria in your gut and predispose you to things like parasites and fungus overgrowing and damaging that gut lining and creating what's called leaky gut.
Mm.
And so if you look at research, it is a real thing. Like doctors who say, oh, it doesn't exist, they've never read a research study on it. It's in research, it'll say increase intestinal permeability. And it's really bad when it gets to that point because your gut, it's basically separating your waste products from your bloodstream. So we don't want those intermixing. And so when you get a lot of inflammation in the gut lining from maybe eating poor quality foods like processed foods, processed sugars are huge for just destroying the gut and causing that leaky gut and inflammation. What happens is that gut lining inflames, you start getting these large holes in that intestinal lining. And now large food particles like gluten and dairy, which is what I was sensitive to, can slip into your bloodstream, trigger an immune response. And now every time you eat that food, your immune system says, hey, this is a foreign invader. So it creates an immune reaction or inflammation. And for a lot of people, it's different. It could be bloating in your abdomen, could be constipation, could be loose stool or migraines. It really just kind of depends on the person. But that's how those food sensitivities start, is leaky gut. It's also the root cause of autoimmune disease. And that was proven, probably, I think it was like 6 or 7 years ago. There's a protein that's released from the intestines when that gut lining starts breaking down and becoming inflamed called zonulin. And you find that in incredibly high amounts in pretty much every autoimmune patient. And so the theory is that it all starts in the gut. And that's where most of your immune system lives. So it kind of makes sense that autoimmunity would start there.
Yeah, that does make sense. I want to go back to the parasites and the detoxes and all of that, because I want to ask your opinion on why this is becoming such a big thing now. So it just seems like everywhere you look and everywhere you turn, somebody's talking about it, and either they're going to do one or they heard about one or they're trying to be sold one, whatever, but it's just everywhere, front and center. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, it's so interesting because I created my social media account before it was a really big thing, before detoxing was really like blew up online. And so it's so funny because I posted the most about parasites because that was my story, right?
Sure.
Like I mean, there were so many coming out that I was like, this cannot be real. There's no way. Like, where were they living? I don't understand. And so I would joke with my friends that I was half human, half worm at one point because there were so many in there. But it's I don't know where the trend came from. I think that people are shifting more towards holistic medicine in general because they're seeing that there's a huge breakdown in the Western medical system when it comes to long-term health and chronic disease prevention. Because unfortunately, medical doctors are the best. We're the best in the world at trauma medicine, hands down, no question. That is what America is so good at in the Western medical field. When it comes to prevention and long-term health, I feel like there's huge gaps in their system. And it's not the doctor's fault. They want to help people. They want to get people better, but it's the system that they're in that teaches them diagnose a disease, give a drug or a therapy or a surgery. And that's pretty much it. That's their standard of care. And so even if they want to do, something more holistic or something else outside of that standard of care, they can actually get in trouble by their state board and lose their license. And so a lot of people, they like to hate on medical doctors, but it's like most of them genuinely want to help you. They just don't know because they weren't taught really a lot of nutrition, maybe just super basic courses. They weren't taught, about how to test properly for parasites and mold toxicity and heavy metals and all these other things that people are really exposed to that start to create these inflammatory conditions that lead to chronic disease later on. And so I think it's just that shift in mindset towards more holistic medicine. And the fact that now, Instagram is so huge that you can just post a picture of a parasite and people are like, oh my God. And it just becomes viral.
It blows up. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like when I post like parasite pictures, people are like, no way. And I'm like, yeah, these are all from my patients from last month. So enjoy them. And because it's just crazy that some doctors still think because they were taught this in school, oh, parasites don't exist in America. And I'm like, have you seen the pictures I posted on Instagram?
Yeah.
Like some of these people have never left the country and they still have parasites. And so it's just kind of wild.
It is kind of wild. But like you said, I think part of it's teaching, part of it's the systems, throw in the insurance companies. I mean, there's a whole bunch of everything that kind of keeps doctors. I agree. I have a lot of medical people in my family, my extended family. And they're all great people and all want to help people. So I
Yeah.
get that it's not really the actual, and listen, we all know there's bad eggs in every field, but for the
Oh, yeah.
most part, right, it's not the actual doctors.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
I want to ask, so again, I want to ask your opinion on what concerns do you have with people jumping on all these bandwagons? Because I mean, we know that we could go out there today and probably buy 15 different like perfect
Yeah.
solutions, right? Detox
Yes.
solutions that are completely
Yeah.
different. What concerns do you have with that? Because it's accessible, very accessible
Yeah.
ish.
Yeah.
I'm
No, it
not
really
saying I'm
is.
not saying they're the good
Yeah.
ones, but
Yeah, no, it's so true. And I think it's because we grew up in this era of one problem, one solution that we just assume that, if you see an ad that says this one product will fix all bloating and all constipation, that you're like, oh, well, yeah, of course it will, because there's one problem for every solution. But
yeah,
if you're really doing deep work with people and actually trying to reverse things that they're dealing with, you have to do an individualized approach for that person. There is no generic approach that's going to fix all your problems. If you do a generic detox, you're going to get generic results. And that's what I always tell
mm,
people is also you don't know what you're targeting. And so one really important thing that I want to start with just to so people understand like how it can be dangerous and how you can get really severe detox reactions from just jumping on a parasite cleanse
yeah.
is this concept of drainage pathways. I don't know if you've heard of that, but basically the
Mm-mm.
natural way that toxins that you're exposed to and waste products that your cells produce every second of every day get out of your body. Because obviously we need that to be functioning efficiently, right? And
Yep,
so
yep.
I talk so much about detoxing, and people are just like, well, I have a liver and kidneys. I don't need to detox. And I'm just like, okay, but are they functioning at 100% or are they functioning at 50% or 60%? And you're just slowly accumulating all this waste and all these toxins in your body until one day, all of a sudden, I ended up with constipation, or all of a sudden, I got, really bad migraines, or all of a sudden I had brain fog. It's not that it happens out of nowhere. That's stuff that's been building for years or decades. And so it's a really important concept to understand that if you cannot effectively remove toxins and waste from your body on a daily basis, it's going to eventually build up and things are going to start breaking down. And so the three major organs that remove waste from your body, number one is your gut. Bowel movements. You should be pooping 2 to 3 times a day. If you're not, you're constipated. The only exception I would say is carnivore diet, just because they tend to only have one per day. And then number two is going to be your gallbladder. And then number three is your liver. So basically, the way waste gets out of your body is your lymphatic system is kind of like the sewage system in your body. It's going to pull toxins and waste from your internal organs. It's going to send it through the bloodstream to the liver. The liver is like the first pit stop that's going to pull all those toxins out of your blood, clean it, send that waste to your gallbladder. Gallbladder dumps it in the gut and it should go out the toilet. So that's like a normal functioning drainage pathway. But then you think about, in the last 50, 60 years, our food has dramatically changed. So now we're
Mm-hmm.
exposed to good quality food, more pesticides, more chemicals and toxins and all that stuff. More processed food is available that now we're starting to slowly over time damage those organs and reduce our ability to get those toxins out. Infections can also do that. Toxins, from your environment can also do that, like heavy metals and things like that. And so when these systems break down and you can't effectively get waste out, that's when things become really detrimental if you're going to jump on a detox program. Because if you just start releasing toxins that have been stored in your fat cells for decades or years, and you just start releasing all that with binders and herbs and all that stuff, and there's nowhere for it to go. If you have a clogged up toilet because you're not pooping every day, or your liver's not functioning well, or your gallbladder's not working, and you just dump all this waste into your body, it's going to have nowhere to go. So it's just going to go systemic and create all these issues. Like I've had people message me on Instagram saying, man, I wish I'd found your page like 3 years ago because I tried to detox and ended up in the ER with a gallbladder attack or migraine or severe stomach pain. And I've had to fix several, lots of people who have, done a detox because it was trendy and it's like, oh, it's good for you. It can only help, right? And they didn't realize this concept of, oh, my drainage wasn't working. And I just released a bunch of toxins that my body had safely stored in fat cells and wherever else it stores toxins. And they had nowhere to go. And so now it just starts creating inflammation and all sorts of issues in other organ systems in the body. So that's number one. Specifically with parasites, when you kill them off with these herbs and binders, they release a bunch of toxic waste into your body as they die. And so
Great.
again, same thing. So like if you're releasing all these extra toxins, they're called die-off symptoms when people kill off parasites or Herxing reaction, detox reaction, whatever you want to call it. They're releasing a bunch of toxins into your gut because that's usually where parasites are living is in your gut. Um, and then if you already have gut issues or you have leaky gut, now
It's just
all those
good.
toxins can go systemic and create chaos in your body.
Mm,
And so that is the danger of just jumping on a detox. If you don't know how your organs are functioning, and if you don't also know if there's any other co-infections like mold toxicity or maybe candida overgrowth, or maybe you have heavy metals in your system, if you don't target everything, the parasites are just going to come back anyways. Even if you do feel better initially, and then you're like, oh, I feel worse again, because you missed something that was also inhibiting your immune system ability to naturally fight off these parasites.
so how do you get to the place of obviously somebody can come work with a functional doctor, and I guess how do you make it not prohibitive for people? Because I think as
Yeah.
much of the popularity of functional medicine and more natural medicine is there, there's also this block because of the costs and because
Yeah.
of the insurance doesn't cover it. And I don't think in any case, I was going to say most cases, but I don't know if in any case.
Well, the only thing that I've found that does cover is if you have an HSA or an FSA. A lot of times they will cover testing. But yeah, you're right. It's insurance won't cover it. And then the question becomes too, well, do you want insurance to cover it? Because then you got to fight with the insurance company to get it ordered. And so it's a tough,
100%.
yeah, it's
But
so tough.
yeah,
Yeah.
because but it's not attainable from a lot of
Yeah.
people if we're being
Yeah.
honest.
Hmm.
And then even if I guess advice, if somebody wants to go down this path, I think because I've talked to other functional doctors before, and there was so much interest by the listener base about following and doing some of the testing and seeing what was going on. And it gets a little bit overwhelming because there are so many tests and they all cost so much. And then you need
Yeah.
interpretation for all the tests. Like,
Hmm.
so what's your opinion on that? Like, how do people start?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I actually do get that question pretty frequently because you're right. Like, there is a barrier to entry, and I don't know the solution for it unless we just have a radical shift in our healthcare system in America, which is tough, right? Because you've
Yeah,
got so many lobbyists from big pharma, you've got lobbyists from the insurance company, making so much money off this sick care model that we have in America that I don't know how they could ever get to that point where it's covered for everyone. But I do
yeah,
see some changes. Like, think about in the last couple of decades, like people now have chiropractic coverage, acupuncture for some
that's
insurance
true.
plans.
That
So
is true.
I think that it's heading in the right direction, but you're right, like it is tough. And so this is where I tell people the basic simple things that you do on a daily basis, they compound over time and they create massive changes years and decades later. So there are simple things you can do on a daily basis to really support your body if you can't afford to work with a functional medicine doctor. Number one, if you don't ever prioritize sleep, if you're sleep deprived all the time, if you're not going to bed by 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. every night, you're missing a lot of that liver and brain detoxing that happens when you're asleep. And there's
Mhm.
so many things that happen when you're asleep, but that's the biggest one for me is like I want to make sure detox pathways are functioning. So going to bed by 10 is huge for people. Try to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Doing simple things like going outside. I think the most recent statistic was that people spend what 94% of their time indoors all the time. You guys, the sun is good for you. Don't just
That makes
slather on
sense.
sunscreen, go outside, get some sun, let the light hit your eyeballs. Don't just always be wearing sunglasses because that actually tells your brain when to go to sleep. So if you're someone who's like, oh, I struggle to fall asleep at night, let the light hit your eyes, especially at sunrise and sunset. That can reset your circadian rhythm. And then just prioritizing good quality food. If you can't afford organic, that's okay. Start with the perimeter of the store. Don't go in the middle. That's where all the processed junk is. And I know this is tough because people are literally addicted to processed food because they hire scientists to make it addictive so that you
Yeah.
don't want to stop eating it. And so you've got to just make a decision of like, okay, I'm for 30 days. I'm just going to cut out all processed food because I guarantee you at the end of those 30 days, if you try to reintroduce Doritos or Pepsi, you're going to be like, this tastes disgusting because your body is so used to real food that you notice like, oh, this is chemical garbage and it's not good for me. And so shopping in the perimeter, a lot of people don't know Walmart, which has some of the cheapest produce, is one of the biggest organic produce distributors in the country. And so if you're like, hey, I can't afford organic, go to Walmart. I guarantee you can afford it there. And
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought of
and
that.
Yeah, exactly. And most people don't. They just think, oh, Whole Foods, it's so expensive, it's whole
Yeah.
paycheck, like that
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And there's so many opportunities now. There's so many of those shipping services that'll ship you good quality beef, good quality fish, good quality produce. Like I know there's one that sends you like ugly produce, the stuff they don't want to sell in
Oh,
stores.
that misfit
Yeah,
market or
misfits.
something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's like there's so many options. You just got to take the time and research them, right? And so starting with clean food, eating whole foods where the only ingredient in your food is the actual food. Start
Mm,
there. Like if you're eating beef or chicken or fish or, broccoli, apples, and you'll realize it's actually a lot cheaper to eat whole foods than it is to eat processed junk because you
yeah.
eat less of it, you get fuller faster. It signals those full hormones in your stomach to tell you to stop eating versus processed food, which you overeat all the time because it's designed to do that. And then other simple things is just learning how to manage stress. So back to your leaky gut question. A lot of people don't know, but research has shown that chronic stress over a long period of time can actually is one of the biggest contributors of that leaky gut. It'll actually cause that increased intestinal permeability, which is what you'll see in research. And so if you don't learn how to manage stress, because you and I both know that life is always going to be stressful, there's always unexpected things that happen, but it's learning how to basically tame your physiology in the midst of that stress. That is probably one of the most powerful things you could do, down regulating the nervous system or getting out of that fight or flight system into the rest and digest. You'll hear a lot of these terms, if you're someone who loves podcasting around health.
Yeah.
But that is so incredibly important because not only does it allow your gut to fully heal and get out of that leaky gut state, but it also turns your immune system back online because stress and your immune system function like a seesaw. So if stress is constantly up, your immune system is not functioning very
Mm.
well. So now you're more likely to have parasites overgrow or mold toxicity affect you or heavy metals really wreck your health because your immune system isn't functioning the way it should to get rid of those. But once we lower that stress, now all of a sudden your immune system comes back online. You can start naturally fighting this stuff off and it doesn't become a full-blown issue where you have to see someone like me to fix it.
That
And so those are some of the best places to start. Breath work, incredibly helpful for so many people to downregulate that nervous system. Journaling, meditation, prayer, so many different things. Being outside, just go outside. Like 30 minutes a day. If you're someone who's like, I haven't seen the sun since, last Tuesday, maybe go outside for 30 minutes every day and get some sunshine, see how you feel, Putting your feet in the earth, grounding is so beneficial. There's lots of studies that have shown decreases in inflammation, making your blood less sticky. So it can actually help prevent some blood clots in people. So many simple things that are free that people take for granted because it's not some sexy biohack they saw online of like, oh, I need to go buy an infrared sauna or a cold plunge tub that's $5,000 or, a
yeah.
PEMF mat, when in reality, you can just go outside and get a lot of that stuff, without all those fancy tools. So hopefully that was helpful.
Such a great point. Yeah, such a great point because I mean, you said all the
Yeah.
basics, right? We all know them. We've heard of them before that you didn't just
Yeah.
make them up. But I think we don't think
Hmm.
about them in terms of potentially helping with this kind of stuff, right? With something
Exactly.
like this. So I think that's so important to tie the
Yeah.
connection together. I'm wondering for people that have tried
Hmm.
things, for people that feel like they have these gut issues that are reoccurring or that are just consistent over the years and they feel like they've tried things like are there any common reasons why they might not be working? Is it more of what you already said? They're not doing them in the right order or something to that effect? Or are there other things that jump into mind?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the biggest two that I see personally, because this was my story, right? People who have tried diet, they've tried supplements, like all those gut healing supplements, like L-glutamine, colostrum, collagen, peptides, all that stuff.
Huge market.
Every, yeah,
Huge
all the
market,
ads that
right?
you've been seeing on
Uh-huh.
Instagram. Yeah, and then also knowing that not most supplements are not good quality. So oftentimes the supplements you're taking can actually be creating the problem. So that's a
Mm.
whole other conversation. But just really quick, don't ever buy your supplements on Amazon. They don't have temperature controlled storage units, so sometimes the products are rancid by the time they reach you. They have fake companies creating labels that look like the legit ones
Wow.
and they're not separated. So just so you know, don't ever buy from Costco or Amazon or GNC or all those generic stores. Find someone who has full script because they're all sourced directly from the company and just buy from them. So Full Script has all those good quality ones like Thorn, Pure Encapsulations, all those good quality products. But yeah, it's just a little quick thing. And what was your original question? Because I know I just got off on a tangent.
That's okay. I actually didn't know that. So that's so interesting. I
Yeah.
think my question was around people that have tried things, feel like
Oh,
they've
yeah.
tried things,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. Yeah. So I usually see the people who they've tried every diet, they've done paleo, gluten-free, dairy-free, vegetarian, nothing worked. Nothing helped them. They tried carnivore, thought it was going to be the magic cure-all because for a lot of people it is, which is great. But again, individualize the care, right? Just because you see something online of like, this was the miracle thing for this one person, you need to buy it, doesn't mean it's going to help you. It could actually hurt you. And so we've got to get out of this Western mindset of one problem, one solution, and understand that healing yourself and getting, healthy again takes an individualized personal approach depending on what your body's dealing with.
Mm.
But the most common reason why I see that diet and supplements don't work is because number one, it's really hard in America to heal with diet anymore because again, so many pesticides are sprayed on our food. There's so much garbage that we're exposed to that even if you buy organic, it might not actually be organic.
Yeah.
And there's just all these little topics around that. And then also the fact that if you have these chronic infections and toxins that are constantly damaging your gut, eating away at the gut lining, preventing it from fully healing, it doesn't matter what food you're putting in your body, what supplements you're putting in your body. If you can't digest them and break them down properly because you have bad liver and gallbladder function, and if you can't absorb those nutrients once they hit the gut because your gut lining is inflamed and destroyed because you have leaky gut, then you're basically just creating really expensive pee and really expensive poop. And so that's what I tell people is like, if you're rebuilding a house and you find termites, are you just going to continue trying to build over the termites? Like,
Mm.
no, that house is going to continue crumbling. You're going to have to continue repairing and continually rebuilding the foundation. Let's remove those critters first, allow the gut to fully heal and other organs to fully heal. And then we can, on the back end, talk about really good quality food, really good quality supplements if you need them. I'm not a huge fan of taking a bunch of supplements every day. I think you can get a lot of your nutrients from good quality food. And then some people might just need a little extra help with supplements, and that's okay. But I really talk about let's rebuild the foundation. Let's get rid of those infections and toxins that nobody's ever tested for.
Yeah.
And then let's see how you're feeling. And now we can talk about, okay, in order to maintain these results, we're going to give you good quality food. We're going to, continue the lifestyle changes I talked about of supporting sleep, keeping your nervous system in that rest and digest state, teaching people how to detox their liver naturally, how to do lymphatic drainage naturally, all sorts of stuff that I teach them, restoring the brain gut connection. And so it's really this holistic approach because yes, I'm talking about gut health, but it's related to so many systems in your body. We can't isolate the body and just treat the gut to fix gut issues. Sometimes it's a liver issue or a gallbladder issue or a systemic toxin or infection that's really just causing damage to that organ. And so I think looking at the whole body is incredibly important because even things like insulin resistance can create some gut issues in people. And yeah, there's just so many different things to look at. But the top things I see are diet and supplements that aren't working because their body can't break down and absorb nutrients properly.
All such good information. And I think while you were saying some of that, what I kept thinking about is that, going back to that saying, and it's a reoccurring theme here now in several episodes, the body keeps the score. And,
Yep.
That in the context that I've used it before, or we've talked about it before, it was more around trauma and stuff that gets stored in the body. But it's so interesting because the more you realize and dig into all these topics, they're so interconnected. And
Yeah.
I think that's another thing that's sort of getting a lot more press these days is that the gut plays a much bigger role than anybody realized, I think, for forever, right? It's just starting to really get the, I guess, credit, if for lack of a better word,
Yeah.
for the good and the bad on what role it plays. So interesting.
Yeah, even mental health is a huge thing with gut health. Like
Mm.
people don't realize that a majority of serotonin and dopamine, which are your happy chemicals that make you joyful and not depressed and anxious, they're produced by gut bacteria and stored in the gut primarily, not the brain. And we've gone decades just giving people SSRIs and it's just a huge disservice because there's so many side effects with that stuff where, we've proven that exercise, like high intensity weightlifting, all that stuff has the same, if not better effects than SSRIs. Healing people's guts I cannot tell you how many people, Marianne, I've seen who came to me and, they obviously had gut issues, but they also had panic attacks or depression or anxiety. And by the time we're done healing their gut and detoxing and getting rid of all that stuff, panic attacks are gone, anxiety is gone, depression is gone. Now, obviously, it's a nuanced topic. There's other things that affect mental health, but I've seen it in so many people that it is just profound when you start with the gut and you support your gut healing, other systems in the body just regulate from that. It's kind of like this big, drainage funnel where if everything's plugged up at the gut, it's going to slowly build up into other systems like the brain. And then you get brain inflammation and, brain fog and headaches and migraines and mental health stuff. And, so many different things that are just tied to gut health. It's really cool to see, just people who are like super anxious when you first start working with them. And then 3 months in, they're like, hey, how's it going, doc? And you're like, wow, you're a new person.
It's wild because, I mean, I can hear how passionate you are about it, right? This is like, you're just everything the way you talk about it and you light up about it is just, you feel so passionate about it. For the person that's listening and they're saying, this sounds too good to be true. This is the snake oil, because it is new and it is pricey and it's emerging. Let's say that. What do you say to that person?
I mean, if I'm being completely honest, like you can't help someone who doesn't want to help themselves. So if somebody has that mindset, like I'm not going to try to convince them. I'll ask them why they think that. And if they want to have an open conversation, I'll talk to them about it. But, some people just have their mind made up and that's okay. If they want to stick with the Western model of how they've been, dealing with their health issues, I mean, that's their choice, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I mean, there's just go watch all these testimonial videos on these functional medicine doctors' websites. Like go watch YouTube videos of people telling their crazy, healing journeys of how this stuff really just completely changed their life. I mean, I'm a living testimony of it, so I know it works.
Yeah.
I've seen it work in hundreds of people, and I just know that, this is, what I want to do, and I know that I'm really, helping so many people. And yeah, you might go to a couple doctors and maybe get 50% better and not really fully get healed. And that can be frustrating, but the body is incredibly complex. The more I learn about it, the more I realize we don't really know anything about it. And so we're just doing the best we can to get people better and constantly learning. But as long as you see someone who is like, a nerd like me, who's like, gets super passionate and like excited about the body, because I love learning about, human physiology and how the gut interacts with the brain and the liver and how the gallbladder can actually affect thyroid hormones and how everything's interconnected. I love that stuff. So find a doctor who's constantly learning.
Yeah.
Like if you go into the doctor's office, ask them like, oh, what are you learning recently? Like what kind of stuff are you interested in outside of this? And if they have like all these things they're looking into, they're probably going to be a good fit for you, because if you continuously learn after school, you're going to be a fantastic doctor. And that, I think, is the biggest predictor of whether or not someone can help you.
I really like that answer. I actually think that applies to a lot of careers, not just being a doctor, right? As somebody that's constantly curious and trying to learn more and kind of bring new things into the equation. Usually it's going to be a better choice. So that's a good one. Well, I always like to ask as we wrap up, if there's only one message. I'm guessing that the listener is going to take away that you had this ginormous parasite.
That's all they're going to get. Just the
if we go
parasite.
Beyond that. It's crazy. It's just a crazy image. If you could only have them take away one message, what would you want it to be?
Yeah, I'd say the number one thing is just don't lose hope. I mean, I've had so many people come to me who are like kind of defeated, and they're like, well, you're kind of my last hope because I've been to so many doctors. I don't know what's going on. Nobody can figure it out. And, obviously it's a lot of pressure as a doctor, but we've been able to get good results for them. And it just know, like, just because you haven't found someone yet who can't help you doesn't mean they're not out there. So like, don't ever stop looking. There's absolutely a solution. I have been told so many times in my life, this was just one example of crazy health issues I've had. I've had 3 major ones and I've recovered from every single one. And so I had a severe head injury when I was 18, almost died. Couldn't remember meeting people. It was that bad. And neurologists told me, oh, the brain doesn't heal. You're stuck this way, which is total garbage. If you look at research in neurology, we've known for decades that it can absolutely heal. And, I found a doctor who actually fixed my brain. And now I can, it works probably better than it did before the head injury. So it's like, I've been told this so many times that I just don't believe it anymore. I'm
Mm,
like, you know what? The body has an incredible capacity to heal. I don't care what doctors have told you. I don't care how many you've seen. There is absolutely something that can be done to help you or maybe even completely reverse what you're going through. Just don't lose hope.
mm.
Like continue looking, continue seeking, continue learning. We live in an age where there's endless information out there that you could learn from at the comfort of your own home, on YouTube, on,
Yeah.
maybe, I don't know, social media is like more the short form content, but listening to podcasts, learning from other experts and, just becoming a part of your health journey is just going to make you feel so much better. So I'd say the biggest message is don't lose hope if you're someone who's really struggling with these gut issues, because it is absolutely possible to heal. And I've seen it so many times in so many different types of people.
That's great advice. It really is.
Yeah.
Well, I want to give you a chance to send people to you. You're obviously very passionate and you're
Yeah.
out there on Instagram, but
Yeah.
where would you want people to find you? Where are you most active and accessible? Is it Instagram?
Yeah, I mean, it is Instagram. That's kind of where I built my
Okay.
business. I don't,
Okay.
it's so funny because I don't like social media. I just have a business account.
I get it.
But I found it's one of the easiest ways to just reach people. And so if you go to my Instagram, it's at Dr. Kate Davis. So DrKateDavis. I've also got a website on there, my profile, if you want to go read some reviews or look at my testimonials or read my full story, because it's pretty crazy. Then you can definitely go on there. And then I also have a a podcast called Unconventional Medicine, that you can listen to on all the streaming platforms. But yeah, definitely go follow me on Instagram because I've got hundreds of posts on there that go a little more in depth into what we talked about today about how to know if you have leaky gut, some things you can do to start healing it, how to start that process of down regulating your nervous system, how grounding is important, all that stuff, sleep and all
Yeah.
that. And so just read through all those, those text posts and the short videos I have on there. That's a great place to start. And then you can also check out the longer episodes on YouTube if you want to, but that's where I am the most. I think it's just the easiest way to reach a lot of people. And then if you're someone who's struggling and you're listening to this and you're like, I don't even know if it would be possible for me to go to the bathroom once a day, like that would be amazing. Or I don't even know what it's like to eat and not feel 6 months pregnant after, just know again that it is possible to heal. And if you're someone who's like, hey, I really want to work with someone one-on-one to really get to the root cause of what's going on and heal faster, you can just DM me the number 100 and I'll give you $100 off an initial consult plus labs package, so that we can get you started and figure out, what infections, what toxins are in your body, where is there a breakdown in those drainage organs, and really just come up with an individualized care plan to get your health back on track.
Love that offer. Thank you for that. And we'll put all your links out in the show notes for
Yeah,
people
thank
as
you.
well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me today. Such a fascinating topic.
Yeah,
So
thank you so much for having me. It was definitely a great conversation. I loved it.
thanks so much for listening to today's episode of Message in the Middle. I hope you found something in this conversation that reminded you that you're not alone and that midlife isn't about winding down. It's about waking up. You're not done. You're just becoming. If this episode speaks to you at all, please share it with a friend who needs to hear it. And if you're enjoying the show, I'd be so grateful if you could take a moment to leave a review. It really helps other women find this community and this podcast. Until next time, take care of yourself.